One of the challenges of building systems at scale is that you eventually have to stop asking, is this correct? And start asking, is this probably correct? Most of the time, that's a perfectly reasonable trade off. Most of the time. But attackers make a living in the gap between that certainty and that assumption. So this week, we're talking about that with forged VPN sessions, AI powered account recovery, voice phishing campaigns, reservation hijacking, and a botnet that spread through the software supply chain. And that's not to mention a new computer worm that could take over the whole internet. This is Initial Access. I'm Sean McMillan, Community Manager here at Bishop Fox. This week I am joined by Shad Malloy, Senior Managing Consultant, and Sergio Villegas, Senior Managing Analyst. Welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show, I should say. You guys are regulars. So. I want to start with the Palo Alto GlobalProtect authentication bypass. And this comes from HelpNet Security. Palo Alto disclosed an authentication bypass in GlobalProtect that allows an attacker to forge what's called an authentication override cookie and potentially establish an unauthorized VPN session. The feature exists for a pretty reasonable reason. Once you've authenticated, it helps spare users from having to repeatedly log in every time they connect. Problem is that under specific configuration, the firewall could be tricked into accepting a forged version of that cookie as a legitimate session. Rapid7 observed exploitation beginning just 4 days after disclosure, and CISA has already added the vulnerability to its known exploited vulnerabilities catalog. What kind of stood out here is it's not really an authentication attack. It's an attack on a system that was built to make it less painful. And now it's quite painful. An authentication override cookie is supposed to spare people from having to re-authenticate every session. What does that convenience feature look like to an attacker? Like once they realize that a token can be forged?
I'm gonna. I read parts of it. I am not a cryptography expert, so I'm gonna tell you what I think.
My job is to read parts of it,
and I'm gonna tee Sergio up for this. So from my understanding, is one of the things they did not want you to have is the HTTPS, basically the website encryption certificate, being used also for this cookie override session, because it uses only the public key. If you have the public key, which, public,
right,
you should be able to forge one of these cookies. And they do have a time limit on them. So there are like some mitigating steps. And it looked like, I believe Rapid7 said that the same group looks like they're behind the two ways of attack. So I will kind of admit my ignorance where I don't understand how they're able to forge like the decoded cookie from like just the public key, but that's like some cryptographer out there or somebody who's way better at understanding how they did that encryption and decryption really figured that out. And I don't know what Sergio's take on that, but it seems like somebody was kind of deep in the guts there to figure that out. So
100%. And I think talking about attacks at scale, what is more at scale than a global protect system, right?
Biggest scale we got so far.
But jokes aside, I think what Shad just mentioned is really important, right? Like, it's not only about the attack, but what needed to happen for this specific attack to develop, right? It was a series of intentions and very targeted nature of the actor wanting to do this. Of course, Palo Alto, it's a big company. They protect literally a lot of systems, right? So it's not unheard of that you want to attack a company like Palo Alto, right? Or Fortinet. Sure. They have a lot of VPNs as well. So it's kind of unheard of. What is interesting is what they attacked. It's the cookie itself, not the authentication, as Chad mentioned, right? Like, I would think, like, why not go after the actual authentication, right? Like forging the cookie directly into the firewall. And I think that's the interesting part. They are not attacking the agents by themselves trying to act as the system trying to connect to the firewall, right? Mm-hmm. But they are replacing something on the firewall directly. So you don't need, this attack doesn't need to be at scale, really. You just need to have a list of known firewalls to be vulnerable to this, and there you go, right?
Yeah.
Because finding users, I mean, it's not difficult, right? Like there's a bunch of users connecting from your favorite coffee shop using using your favorite VPN, so it's easy in that sense. But yeah, this was very specific. I'm not a cryptography expert either. What I think
Yeah.
what's fascinating is the combination of things that happened for this particular attack.
Do you understand the researchers? They said that like the forged cookie was accepted without, in most cases, without a full VPN session completing. Um, do you know like how they would have seen that? Like where that kind of signal shows up during recon, or what they would even do with that?
I'm not sure where it shows up in recon. They did Rapid7 did like show what the kind of indicator of compromise was. So
Hmm.
so they were somebody definitely got tipped off because they said, they saw some odd like login behavior.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah,
so I wonder if Palo Alto is not the end of the attack here. Like these
Sure.
attackers were not targeting Palo Alto. They have either a target or a list of targets that are behind Palo Alto firewalls,
Part of it.
and they
Yeah.
yeah,
were, you know, told to go gather information or told to do something. I believe they said it was kind of a state linked threat actor. So like we just happened to see part of the attack chain that was through the VPN, but we don't know what, like
Right.
we are not read in on those programs where they're telling us what they were actually after. So,
And this
100%.
4-day window too. I mean, this was 4 days from when it was disclosed to when it was actually spotted in the wild. I mean, it's not a whole lot of time, but we are kind of seeing that more often. Is that it's uh, your time
It,
to do something about it is shrinking.
yes.
right. It's not a lot of time, but it's actually a lot of time for the attacker to do something, right?
Oh,
And the problem with detection of this particular thing is that it was a trust issue where there was no signature verification. So that's why the override was kind of valid for the system. It was like, okay, yeah, I will not validate the actual signature of this certificate. It's
Mm.
I'm just replacing the cookie session that is valid for both the client and my system. So it's fine, I guess. Come in, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's classic. Just when you've got trust, you've got everything. So
Right.
yeah. And I wonder how many of these cookies you could pick up off of, like he was saying, like in a coffee shop. But if you kind of move back one layer, like uh some of those threat actors had access, through like telecoms and stuff. If they were sitting in a telecom for a while, how many of these sessions, do they have like banked in case they need them? So
yeah, yeah. Well, let's talk about the big scary this week. And I want to read the headline word for word as well. This is from Fortune. A new AI powered computer worm could prove to be the stuff of cybersecurity nightmares.
That's scary.
Um, yeah, there's maybe a little drama infused in there, but researchers at University of Toronto built an experimental AI powered worm and let it loose inside a simulated corporate network. Over the course of a week, it compromised nearly three-quarters of the environment and established persistence on roughly two-thirds of the systems without any human intervention. The, the novel thing here is not infection rate, but adaptability. Because traditional worms are usually built around a specific vulnerability. You patch the vuln and end of story. This one, using an AI agent, it was able to identify opportunities as it moved through the environment and pull in fresh phone information and adapt its approach along the way, as we have talked about in the past, like a human would. Um, so this kind of comparison everyone's making is to things like Morris or WannaCry, but those were built around specific phones, um, and feels like w- how do we think about a worm that can actually change its mind once it's in an environment?
I think it's no surprise, right? Over the last few weeks, we have been talking about like how AI has been augmenting threat actors to be faster and better, more accurate, right?
Yeah,
And I think what is happening is that we are seeing automatization and operalization of red team simulation scenarios
yeah,
applying in the real world, right? Like, what happens if you use your favorite AI? Let's think about like I'm using Cloud right now, for example, and it has an auto mode, right? And I can tell Cloud like, hey, I'm thinking about all of this, and it will create different steps by its own based on that initial kind of uh, prompt, right? So it's not that much different, right? If you tell, hey, you have access to these different systems and I have these different scripts that you can use to force an access, right? You're not using like triggering words like hacking into this system. You're using, I have these scripts that have particular access to these systems. Hey, can you try and retrieve information? Because something that we have to kind of remember every time is that attackers don't just attack, right?
right.
Attackers have a goal and intention. So if you are looking for private information, hey, you have access to all of these systems in this network through these scripts that happen to be 0 days, right? Uh,
Yeah,
can you go and collect everything private, sensitive you can? It's just to see what we can protect, and it will go and help
the
you
AI doesn't think
protect the
it's a threat
system,
actor; it thinks it's a
right?
red teamer. You know?
Correct. It doesn't necessarily happen that way, right? But it's it just shows how in a podcast like this we can create a quick prompt and tell Cloud what to do in the system. I'm not saying go and do that, but I'm saying it's not that really that bad or really surprising. I think there's yes a bit of drama on the headline
Oh,
indeed.
for sure. Yeah, I mean, it is something, but yeah, stuff of cybersecurity nightmares. I love it.
I I think of this as basically like on an internal test. Like once you're internal to the network, a lot of the stuff that you do is kind of the exact same thing as an administrator is doing. Like enumerate all of the shares and like look through all the files and like to me it looks like you basically have like an extra junior pen tester where you're like, you know what I don't like doing? Looking through NFS shares. You know what I'm going to make the junior guy do? Look through NFS shares.
Yeah.
And like he was saying, like if I had a list of scans, like let's say I, you know, looked at all the hosts and had I would dump that into like an AI because it says it's planning on using open weight models. Like, hey,
Hmm.
here's 40 things, like 40 open ports and shares and stuff. Prioritize them, in like whatever like weighting category you have, and report back to me in the morning. I'm going to leave for the day. So
Yeah.
like we talked about coding as having an intern that's read all the documents and doesn't get bored. It seems like this is like having a junior pen tester that read all the documents and doesn't get bored and knows how to use regex. So
That's fair.
And I think Shad just made that an important kind of insight there, right? What if you compare this? Because I know certain AI tooling have guardrails, or they try to have guardrails, but right. But what if you say, "Hey, I'm a system administrator. Can you help me share? Can you help me list all of these NFS shares? Can you help me list all of the Active Directory?" It will it will be hard for an AI entity to differentiate between an actual legitimate use case. Hey, I'm attacking and I'm doing things at a scale, right? That
Yeah.
that was the headline this week.
Yeah. It doesn't know you're lying to it. Yeah. The other thing I think here worth pointing out is that this all happened within a simulated environment. This is sort of lab control to some degree. Um, are there any kind of like messy real world things that would prevent this type of scenario or limit this type of scenario from happening outside a lab?
so so I always it's people, right? Like so at some point it's either going to pop up a command window, it's going to do something
Mm,
on Jackie in accounting's computer, and she knows exactly how her computer runs all the time, and she is going to pop that incident response alert. um but also like things do not work, and naming doesn't work, and there's honeypots inside networks.
Yeah.
And I've worked on systems where, like, every time, first time you put your password in, it fails. Like, I don't know why, but it does. So,
Yeah.
like, I think it might move on from some, like, not even fragile systems, just kind of weird behavior systems where, like Sergio and I are just going to beat our heads against it until it gives up. But
Yeah.
like, it will hit like one time, retry it, move on, or like it's going to work overnight. And, that one guy always takes his laptop home, and
Yeah.
like, he's really the linchpin for everything. He has all the data, but he turns his computer off, or
So like spaghetti code could save the day.
I mean,
Really.
really,
Yeah.
that code is what I'm known for. So
Yeah.
Yeah.
You're
And
the
I think
anti-Claude.
And I think the question back to them is to the researchers that did this thing is how well did you simulate in a corporate network, right? I
Mhm.
mean, there's no bulletproof network in the world, right? But did you put your EDRs in place with custom policies, with uh, like no joke, right? Like with really bad code that is really hard to understand because it's so bad written, maybe.
Mhm.
I've
Uh,
written code that I can't understand now. Like,
Right. So it's hard to say. I'm not saying it's impossible, right? But saying it's adapting inside a simulated network. Well, yes, it's simulated, right?
Yeah.
I'm not saying let's throw it into a company network, but I think it'll be interesting to see what the real results are and how that can help the AI to train their models to be like, stop there, right? Uh,
Yeah.
and also, Shad just mentioned honeypots, and I think I saw the other day a post about like training models for like detecting honeypots, and if you see like very too responsive systems that are too responsive or that give you like yes to everything, here's the files, here's everything, like to stop, right? Because
Mhm.
it's weird. You don't normally get that level of trust from the
Yeah.
systems. So I will try to look for that post for the next
Huh. Interesting.
initial access. Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, let's talk about this support bot story from Tech Radar. Over a single weekend, attackers hijacked a number of high-value Instagram accounts by talking to Meta's AI support assistant and making it do the work for them. Uh, no traditional kind of malware stuff involved. It's just researchers found that they connected through a VPN in the target's region, interacted with a support bot, and they could convince it to associate a new email address with an account and initiate a password reset flow. This technique only worked against accounts without two factor authentication. Let me repeat.
turn
Use
on 2FA.
your
Yeah.
two factor authentication. And Meta patched the issue shortly after it was disclosed. But I think one of the interesting things here is it's not like just the account takeover, but that the AI agent had been given authority to make account recovery decisions. And those decisions ultimately came down to whether the system believed the person it was talking to was the legitimate owner. This is that offloading of decision making, and how that can backfire. It's the support workflow becoming an attack surface, essentially. I think when a conversational agent like this is sitting in front of account recovery actions, what does that do for attack opportunities that wouldn't exist with like a traditional login form?
I so I'm gonna kind of reframe this a little bit, which is like, potentially it could be like you giving your agent, like your AI agent, like too much privilege, too much access to do this thing.
Sure.
It doesn't sound like this is acting outside of what it was supposed to do. It sounded like
Hmm.
somebody just social engineered the robot.
Right.
And what you're telling me is, you think that Sergio and I couldn't social engineer a person sitting in that chair? Like, I've got red team people who are way better than me. Like, I, I feel like this one is like same techniques, different users. Turn on 2FA.
Yeah.
Like this account takeovers are a known issue. You
Yeah.
can if
I
you
mean,
can
we
get
talk about
people to
AI
bypass the product, you can
attacking
get the thing. Yeah.
all the
Yeah,
time, but like AI, the more it's like a human, the more it can be manipulated like a human, I think.
I couldn't agree more. Right? It's a repurpose of the actor's manipulative skills, basically,
Yeah.
where they're just luring the bot into, hey, do whatever I want within your permissions, right? I'm not telling you to do anything weird.
Hmm.
I'm just trying to recover my account,
Yeah.
right? Do what you are supposed to do.
I
Yeah.
saw a kind of a similar attack from one of our consultants where she said, "Oh, I just threw up, and can you just help me with this?" And like basically like appealing to the robot's emotions, and it worked. And
Right.
I was like, "Man, that's never gonna work." And maybe I'm too old, maybe I'm just too dumb to get it to work. But I was like, I would not have thought that would work. But like
But
somewhere
it
in its
did.
model, it understands like illness is a thing that happens to people. So
Yeah.
And it
Wow.
also speaks about how we are adapting our different technologies or systems to be more accessible for people, right? Because the
Yeah.
only reason why there is an AI bot that has access to this feature is because there is people that is using this bot to reset the thing instead of like going to settings, recover password, I forgot. They don't do that,
Hmm.
right? They prefer to talk to something,
Yeah.
right? It
Even if
makes
it's
it
not a
more,
human, they feel like they're talking to a human. Yeah.
yeah.
my
And I
my
think
mom
it's that,
would want to talk to a real person, right?
Hey, I've been in that
So,
situation where I know I'm talking to a support bot, but it feels better than filling out a form
yeah.
and waiting. Yeah.
And I think the lesson learned is 100% just enable 2FA, right? Like second factor authentication.
Yes.
It's it should be the bare minimum now, right?
Yeah.
Right now, wherever I see like I'm using uh, eh, what is this new thing called? Passkey, right?
Passkeys.
yeah.
Yeah.
I
I'm
prefer that.
still resistant. I use a couple, but I like the best
I even
messages.
whenever I see different features like
Yeah.
multi-factor authentication 2FA and I see passkey, I'm like, okay, I'm gonna use my passkey, right? Because
Yeah.
what better way to protect myself like not even knowing my own password, right? Like let the thing run and I
You
just
couldn't interrogate it out of me.
Yeah.
yeah, even if you want.
Yeah. I think, an interesting thing here too is that it didn't check identity, it checked location and it verified. So it was kind of like, I used to work in a bank and I don't think I'm giving anything away by saying like sometimes someone would come in and they didn't have an ID, but you'd be like, he was in yesterday and I see that he works for this company. And like you kind of piece it together based on the information that you have. And if enough things stack up, you just kind of say, yes, you can do this, not like a wire transfer, but you're just trying to make a deposit or something, something like that. Um, and I feel like this is one of those situations. How often in cybersecurity do you see systems that just kind of like validate something adjacent instead of like the actual identity?
I mean, I think those like ID.me sites where they ask you like, "Hey, did you ever have a bank loan?
Right.
Like did you ever have an apartment like in this city and state?" Like I think we use like kind of breadcrumbs like that like a lot. If you work at a bank and somebody ever wants to deposit money into my account, that should always just be allowed. Like,
You know?
keep handing
Yeah.
it to me. But like I think as people, like we are good at crumbing adjacent things, and like location probably wasn't the strongest in this point, but it did check something, right? Like at
Yeah.
least it wasn't saying,
Could
you
be a
know,
factor.
yes.
Like, yeah, a limiting factor, but yeah.
Yeah. There is normally multiple factors, right? With all of those factors I'm thinking, let's think about like a fingerprint of the web browser. You can fake that. Let's think of look again, location. Yeah, you can fake that.
Easily fakeable. Yeah.
Like all of the different things I'm thinking right now, they are easily you can, yeah, you can use set your own MAC address, your own like anything, right?
Mhm.
There is no it's very hard. Like how restrictive you want to be because yes, you can be super restrictive and be like, okay, give me accept this from another device you are logged in, and then after that you will receive an email, and to make sure that you you can have all of those hurdles. But if the user didn't enable the second factor authentication, do you think they will do that? No, right?
Right.
They
Right.
will just hesitate to use the platform. So I think the balance it's a very weird balance of like trying to be restrictive, but not that much. It's highly likely that the whole attack chain, they also manipulated things like fingerprint of the web browser, and more specific, not only the location, but also the ISP, because some big companies tend to register like, hey, what ISP do you normally connect from, right? Like on both your mobile and your local device.
Yeah.
I think at some point they also become so restrictive that people start to complain and stop using it.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's
So
always the
like
trade-off.
they have to balance like the human side of it as well. Like it is like, once again, it is not my tough nut to crack. Like I'm glad I'm on
Yeah.
this side of breaking
I got
things.
my own problems. Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I guess my last question here is recon on something when it's the uh, the target is really the model's judgment as opposed to something that's reliable like a code path or something. What does recon even look like? Like, do you try to determine how do you determine a model's judgment or what type of model they're using?
um, I, I think you would like how I would do. I would just shotgun that thing. I would be like, what if I just call in and tell it to reset it and just give it the username? And I'll be like, no,
Yeah.
like, okay, I've gathered a lot more information about this other account. What if I give it all this information? Like what in the spectrum is enough? So it
Yeah.
seems like location was maybe the thing that got them over the hurdles of what they already knew. So because I mean, attackers are just like everyone else. They're going to do the bare minimum, and if that was the bare minimum to get by those security controls, that's what they did.
Yeah.
Normally for this type of systems, you do either an overwhelming amount of information that is valid information, or a specific like specific strings of text, right? Uh, what I'm thinking, because of how they describe this article in particular, is that they use send, like, hey, I'm really this user. This is me. This is my photo. This is where I live. Like very, very valid information. So this system is like, well, how can this person not be this person if they are giving me all of these details that are supposed to be private information, right?
See, that's
Which
what
is not.
I did, and that's why I don't work at the bank anymore. You know?
Yeah.
Um, so let's talk about this latest shiny hunters business here. From Bleeping Computer, Charter Communications confirmed a breach affecting roughly 4.9 million customer accounts after the shiny hunters extortion group leaked stolen data online. According to the threat actors, the intrusion began with a voice phishing call that compromised a single employee's Microsoft Entra account. From there, they moved into Charter's Salesforce environment and exported customer records that included names, email addresses, phone numbers, and physical addresses. Uh, this is not a brand new technique. This is the same thing that Shiny Hunters has been running variations of this playbook against Salesforce customers for more than a year. A compromise in an identity, inherit the trust that comes with it, and use that access to reach all the stuff sitting behind it. At some point, this kind of becomes a story about how much access organizations are concentrating behind that single identity. And this entire chain ran apparently through one phone call. From an attacker's view, what makes a help desk or an IT support persona such a reliable way to compared to a technical exploit?
Because you can't patch people, right? Like And you can just keep
As
retrying
much
it.
as we try.
Yeah, you can just keep retrying it and get until you find either a persona that works or somebody who will accept it. And also, I use Salesforce. I feel like these guys are just way better at Salesforce than I am. If
For
somebody was
real.
like, Shad, go in and export that report, I would be like, "Oof, you're gonna have to give me 15 minutes.
All right, that's my Tuesday.
Yeah, I feel
Yeah.
like these guys are just really know how to use the software well at this point.
Yeah.
So, something that is always interesting for me is, yes, if you throw an exploit, let's a remote code execution into a system, you will have access to that system and all of its network kind of accesses, right? If you really think about it, that's pretty limited because normally a single access won't get you much, right? You maybe will have it will be difficult unless it's an access that centralizes everything, every session,
Yeah.
every SSO, right? But if you attack the IT person, well, what does IT does? They have access to support
A
panels,
lot. Yeah.
to desktops, to servers because they need to provision, to Salesforce apparently, uh, different CRMs, ERPs, because they have to work with finance, they have to work with executives. So I think it's how your scope become like, instead of being like, yeah, I have this single server for this company for shared communications. Well, I have access to all of the records for shared communication, right? It's a lot. And considering, like, again, things at scale, they own like 20 million IPs. So how much people is that, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, it doesn't surprise me that they wanted to do it this way. Because Shiny Hunters is known for that kind of stuff, right?
Yeah.
Something that
Yeah.
is also interesting is that we have been hearing of Shiny Hunters quite recently. I think it was 3 weeks ago when they
Yeah.
attacked
Very
the
recently.
Canvas
Yep.
system for
Yeah.
schools.
Yeah. Yep.
So they are just just doing their job, kind of, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, they're doing this across. This is not like the targets are different every time. It's not the same kind of organizations, but it's the same sort of repeatable attack.
Right.
Yeah, I
That
think
I guess.
they know what they're good at, and if you're using the thing that they are good at, like you're on their list.
Yeah.
They don't seem ideological, right? Like they're not like, oh, we want to attack like this thing. It's like, no, if you're using it, you should patch. You should
Yeah.
do a training.
Yeah.
So
It almost feels like the sort of like traveling mystic or like snake oil salesman of like the 1800s that would go village to village scamming, like doing the exact same trick in different locations, and they just know their way around
Yeah.
Salesforce, basically.
Yeah. And not shade to the IT community in general, right? But like, uh,
Or
it's
mystic.
sorry.
I said, oh, no shade to mystics
yeah,
either.
no,
Yeah.
But it's like, maybe we, as an engineering community, we need more awareness, right? That, hey, I'm an IT person, I have access to all of this. If I receive a call, I should probably verify everything, right?
Yeah.
I know it will be slow. I know it doesn't matter if it's your CEO calling. It's like, hey, I want to protect your company, so please let's slow down and let's do things the right way. And I think that lack of awareness is kind of, or has been in recent news, like from developers, IT support. I'm not saying I'm an expert and I will never fail, right? I
Mhm.
just put it out there. But I think, yes, there is a different of awareness of things to do, right? Like I'm very scary of everything I click on an email, or like I sometimes prefer to skip the email or delete the emails because, ma- yeah, maybe I'm overreacting in those scenarios, right?
Better than
Uh,
underreacting. Yeah.
but I don't want to be on your next initial access podcast talking about me.
Yeah. You want to be commenting on the story. You never want to
Yeah.
be the story. Yeah.
Yeah.
I was on a client, and they apparently were sending out like phishing test emails, and I finally checked the email, and it came back and it was like, congratulations, you didn't click on that email. And I was like, I just don't check my email. Like it's not that I'm better than anyone else. I'm just really bad at email.
Yeah. Yeah. I've never failed one of those because, you know, I just mark it as read and move on. All right, so this hotel reservation one. This is an interesting one too. Um, this comes from Wired. Researchers documented a campaign they're calling Reservation Hijacking, where scammers use a victim's real hotel reservation as the basis for a phishing attack. According to researchers, attackers are often getting in through hotel staff or property management systems, giving them access to the same booking platforms hotels use to communicate with guests. From there, they can send messages through legitimate channels, referencing real reservation details and directing guests to payment pages that look like part of the booking process. So, one victim reportedly authorized a fraudulent charge of more than €1,000 using a one time password. And because the transaction appeared legitimate, the bank declined to reverse it. I think this is like, there's no more phishing email required. You don't even need that.
Yeah.
The attacker just shows up in a conversation that, by all checks, would appear legitimate. I think when they're communicating through a channel like that, does the idea of a pretext even mean anything anymore?
I think it. So this is really good tradecraft from my side, because that's what we tell people in the security awareness trainings, right? Is, make sure it's it's coming from the correct source or the correct website. Like it checks some of those security awareness boxes that we told people to check.
Yeah,
And
check the URL, that kind of thing.
yeah, if it's, you get those short code SMS ones, from like your bank or anything. If it comes from a short code SMS one, it's like, I did just request a, PIN. Okay, like it's
Mhm.
probably about the same. Like I think the
Yeah.
tradecraft on this is good. I'm not going to discuss whether I think the bank should have like refunded the money or not. I don't understand banking industry, but
I don't either, which is why I'm not. You're
right,
finding out all the reasons why I'm not at a bank anymore. No.
but yeah, like
Ugh.
if it's, it's correct hotel, correct dates, correct channels. Like I'm just hoping I don't check that email. Like that's my
Yeah.
one defense against that.
Yeah, because we've spent years teaching people to look for suspicious emails and fake URLs, and like, how do you defend yourself when it's coming from the organization you're already in communication with? I mean, it's
Right.
it's hard to say that this is any fault of a customer. You know?
Yeah. Maybe I want to take a step back into that part, right? Let's think about the hospitality industry right now. If you
Okay,
Google
let's get deep.
if you Google hotel front desk, literally right now, what
Mhm.
you will see is images of the front desk and exposed computers, exposed parts of the computers. Like I invite my guests in the podcast right now to do that, and you will see that, right?
I'm seeing it right now. I just Googled it.
Yeah. So it's like, well, it's they are creating that legitimate channel. If you can just go there first, like, hey, I forgot about this. Can you check that info for me? They will go to the back office, check the information. You just plug a random USB and you have access to that. You have access to the channel of communications, right? Uh, because I think the second part, it's not that it's alarming, right? But
Mhm.
it's a legitimate channel of communication, and they are asking for a payment. So the payment was legit in a sense. It came through a legit source, and they
Yeah,
approve it legitimately, right? They didn't hack their bank account. They didn't try to fish for them to have access to the one-time password. No, it was. I kind of I don't want to agree with the bank because it's harsh, right? But it was a legitimate channel in a technicality. It was a legitimate communication and a
right.
legitimate transaction.
Sure.
And I
Yeah,
think
'cause the
that
bank didn't do anything wrong either. Yeah, it's everyone just following the rules, and suddenly,
Maybe
yeah.
maybe like a side conversation on this. How do they monetize that? Because like I'm an attacker, I obviously want to monetize it. So if it comes through the right platform, through the right channel, they must have just redirected the payment to their bank or something.
yeah, that's
Okay.
it. It said that the communication channel was correct,
but it was
and the
like a
one-time
different
password
bank
was
account.
correct
Yeah.
from the correct place, but then the payment portal
Okay.
was a spoof.
Because
Yeah.
I
So,
mean,
like you said, tradecraft.
yeah, like that's how
If
you
tradecraft.
usually that's how these things get disrupted, right? Is they disrupt the monetization part because we have a lot of controls over the banking section. So
Yeah.
Yeah. But I thinking like it's highly likely that the, it was a payment directly to purchase something like gift cards in a random website, and then they monetize that way because it will be harder if it was like directly to their bank.
yes,
Well, yes,
Right.
you can trace that. Yeah, it will be.
Yeah.
I get more complex than that.
Well, let's end with a positive story here, because we always talk about all these people that got swindled and shut down. So this one comes from TechCrunch. CrowdStrike, Google, and Shadow Server Foundation announced a coordinated takedown of Glassworm, a botnet that had been targeting software developers through the open source supply chain. We've talked about that before here. The campaign spread through poisoned NPM packages, malicious VS Code extensions, and compromised GitHub repositories, stealing credentials and access tokens from developer systems. They built this C2 infrastructure instead of relying solely on traditional servers. They hid parts of its infrastructure in places like Google Calendar event titles, Solana blockchain transaction memos, and the BitTorrent DHT. So it was supposed to be resilient. Like you take down one channel, the operators can rebuild through the remaining ones, which is why the disruption effort had to hit all 4 C2 paths at the same time. And maybe the broader takeaway here is the target wasn't the software, it was people building the software, which, as we've talked about, it's a dirty pool. Once you compromise a developer workstation like that, you've got access to everything they were working on: CI/CD systems, cloud environments, etc. Um, I think in hiding the C2 in places that defenders can't really easily block, what does that say about how attackers now think about resilient infrastructure versus a single hardened server?
I mean, I think this has been happening, like maybe not all like those hash tables and like Solana, but I mean backup like command and control infrastructure seems, that's been happening for a while. I think they did, like, the coordination on this seems like really what we should highlight, because
Yeah,
like if you had to get Google, Shadow Server, and CrowdStrike, and I'm assuming like other like people in those blockchains and stuff together to like all hit it within a same amount of time, some time window that it couldn't be rebuilt.
yeah.
Like, I don't know if you've ever had meetings between multiple companies, but like I assume just the project management on that was like a heavy burden.
I
Somebody carried
bet.
that water, and they should be like
Yeah.
commended.
There were high fives in multiple offices.
Yes.
Like in any kind of space movie when they show the control room and everyone's just like they completed the mission, it had to look like that all around.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
I mean, even just like getting 2 or 3 like internal teams to do things at the same time in the same place is like hard, but adding this level
Yeah.
of like just administrative overhead is difficult. So I think it should be commended. I think it makes everyone safer. So
Yeah.
well, except for
Yeah.
the class 1 people, that makes them less. So,
So like you said, it took this kind of coordination. Everyone had to do it at the same time to make it so that it couldn't just, rebuild like a Hydra sort of thing. Um, so where does an attacker who watched this all play out go next? Because couldn't this be done again?
I think it would burn those channels that you were using, right? Like, okay, so no more hash tables, and we can't use Solana anymore. What
Yeah.
what is the new hotness? Can we use? I don't know, a public Claude skill database. If that happens, I want like trademark on mine. But like
Good luck.
some crazy thing, like
You'll get credit and be arrested.
yeah. So like there's like they're always like either like cut on the bleeding edge, because if you don't care about if you're doing things maliciously, you can use things in weird ways, right? So
Yeah.
I think we need, like, we are usually playing catch up because we are more risk adverse than the attackers. So
And the other thing is that behind scenes, right, for actors, they normally look for things like bulletproof hosting. That's a name. That's how they advertise it. Bulletproof hosting, right?
Yeah.
Uh, at the end of the day, the IP is the infrastructure behind it. It's owned by someone connected to something, right?
Yeah.
So organizations have to cooperate, or their business get seized. They get shut down, right? So there will. It's. I know we have talked about actors using AI to accelerate infrastructure assignment for C2 for quick campaigns, but in this particular case, I think uh, all of the different techniques, tactics, and how they were working got burned. So if they try to rebuild using the same thing, it will be hard because every different host, ISP, or big cloud provider is already on the lookout for this particular behavior, right?
Yeah.
So it will be highly risky. Uh, because with the high risk, it comes like actual, like physical human uh, identification of who the actor is, right? That's why you can't, or actors
That's
don't
true.
tend to reuse the same thing across the same provider. So they will have to look, and if they find another housing, they need to be like, this is fresh, new techniques. They can't use the same things, or they will risk the bulletproof hosting as well, right? So it's for them it's again, it's a business, right? They are this is
Sure.
the way they're making money. So they need to be careful on how they do stuff, or they get their revenue stops, basically.
Even threat actors have risk appetite.
oh yeah.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
I know there's a lot of like ransomware as a service, and there's like tiers.
Yeah.
You want the
Yeah.
brand new, nobody's gonna catch us. That's gonna cost you this much.
Yep.
Yeah.
This one's already burned, but it's cheap. Like where do you want like they literally have like
Timu
theory model.
ransomware. I
Yeah.
don't know.
So,
Yeah.
Um,
That's how they learn search Salesforce. They track their campaigns through a CRM.
so
yeah.
probably in
All right.
Salesforce.
Well,
Like turn shiny hunters on those guys and like
well, like I said at the beginning, this is a week of stories about how systems don't need to always know what's true. They just need to know what's probably true most of the time. As always, thanks for listening. If you found this useful, share the show with a friend, a colleague, anyone on your team that might benefit from it. Shad, Sergio, thank you so much for showing up,
great, awesome. Thank you.
spending time here.
Yeah.
And yeah, till next week, stay safe out there.
Thanks.